What's up, YouTube? We're in the new shop. So you got a couple projects been in and out of here. We moved some stuff last night. Got an engine rebuild on the old T-Rex back there. A bunch of leaks to fix and things. Redecking a trailer outside. That's what the lumber's for. The old one of the V10s is in here, and Delu, the fancy Lou pig. Yep, she's mad we're here this early. But what do you do? Anyways, I'm gonna sit you down here for a minute. Um, 7.2 liter Cummins. When I first heard about it, I'm like, I don't know. That seems interesting, but um, I keep hearing more and more about it. And given that I was, I imagined at this point in time for trucks that we would be a little bit done with the horsepower race and the torque race, and maybe be moving towards a fuel efficiency competition, I guess. Because reality, these new trucks. But I'm kind of, hang on here, kind of gone over this before. The new trucks don't get the fuel mileage like the old trucks, but the old trucks were, 200 horse, when everybody's like, the 12 valve got such good fuel mileage. Yeah, it was like, I don't know, what were they, 215 or something horsepower. So of course they got good fuel mileage. But even the new ones, if you drive them nice, they still don't get that 20-ish or sometimes low 20 fuel MPGs. With 7.2, now I guess we'll start over. Why would they go to why would they leave the 6.7 instead of just turning the power up more? The problem is if you have a bigger displacement and you can bring drive pressure down, you can reduce NOx emissions, and we have to reduce that yet again once more here soon for Tier 5. And we can't scrub any more out of the exhaust, essentially, so it's time to, well, I don't want to say never. But what I do like is they're headed towards the engine and the source of the NOx instead of just an after treatment, afterthought to attempt to address it. So when you have bigger displacement, it's easier to obtain the horsepower and the torque, obviously. But that, we're getting, some guys think that it's going to be a whole block design. There's a chance. I mean, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to, pretty much put a stroker kit essentially in a 6.7 and get to a 7.2, or I don't know how much iron's in those blocks. I don't know if they're going to be a completely new engine or if it's going to be a modified 6.4 block or 6.7 block. Kind of interesting. I don't know what they're going to do either way, but they're claiming 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet of torque. One thing about displacement, like when if you look at fuel mileage and stuff, the just for instance, a semi truck, a 14-liter semi truck engine at let's say if your gross weight was 40,000, pretty light for a semi, you will get better fuel mileage than you will with a small displacement engine pulling that 40,000 than the 6.7 would, which is less than half the size, because you just run into efficiency issues essentially. You're getting outside of that efficiency range. Like, yeah, your power is up, but it takes so much fuel to make that power. It's wild. So the 7.2, if done correctly, could potentially pull better fuel mileage under load than the 6.7. The 6.7 will do better not under load. This is theoretically speaking, if we compare it to what we see in the rest of the engine's world. So under load, the 7.2 would potentially get better fuel mileage. This is going to be like what a lot of diesel pickups are these days, pretty much a mom rocket for a stay-at-home dad. Your fuel mileage is probably not going to be as good as it used to be. So essentially the displacement is one to achieve a little more power, and it's easier to hit torque numbers with I'm sure it's going to have a longer throw on the crank. It's always that always helps with twist, which is torque. So that's probably why they're doing that. The 7.2, the displacement brings drive pressure down a little bit while obtaining that same power, and brings NOx emissions down a little bit. One interesting thing while I'm sitting here on the computer screwing around with this stuff. This is the AI overview on Google. Cummins is also replacing the 6.4 liter Hemi, which is good because it's a turd anyways. Gasoline engine with a new Cummins gasoline engine. This move demonstrates Cummins' commitment to innovation, blah, blah, blah. Dodge always likes to pretend they're special with Cummins, but they're not. Cummins has had a natural gas variant of every engine, not every, almost every engine they've ever made since forever. Like, you can go into the 80s and find Cummins, maybe even more than that, but I'm mostly familiar with it. Going into the 80s era, like, I've seen 5.9s with spark plugs for natural gas, 6.7 for natural gas. You know, the gasoline. I was at Conequip Expo in Vegas a couple years ago. Cummins had their gasoline 6.7 there. It's just a 6.7 with spark plugs, lower compression. It was turbocharged, and it was just fuel injected. I think it wasn't direct. It was port fuel injection, which is the best gasoline style fuel injection as far as longevity goes at this point. But yeah, you know, I think now that we've watched the automotive world screw around with gasoline turbo engines and be mostly successful at this point, like that's definitely the way the world is headed. Mostly because they can limp those things through the EPA fuel mileage requirements, even though in a towing scenario like in the F-150s, the 5 liter usually pulls better fuel mileage with the same load than the 3.5 does. Just kind of you get into physics a little bit with that stuff, because displacement doesn't always mean fuel mileage, because your turbocharger is essentially in a retrospect, a kind of a simple way to put it is it pretty much makes the engine essentially variable displacement, because you can shove a bunch of air and fuel in under force and get that explosion and that power that you need. As to where naturally aspirated, you're always limited to how much air is going to be drawn in under vacuum. So now that we've seen the gasoline, because for a long time with carburetors, your fueling has to be fairly precise and fairly accurate with gasoline turbochargers to not run in an over-lean scenario and burn things up. To where a diesel, you know, you essentially want to run them as lean as you can and burn all the fuel you can to get your fuel mileage and your efficiency up, for the most part. But anyways, yeah, I think 7.2 sounds like it's probably going to happen. I'll be excited to see it. I think it's kind of, I don't know if I'm that excited about. It's a pickup truck at the end of the day. The engine is sure 500 horsepower and 1,200 pound-feet in the 3500s with tiny brakes, but it's still going to be, federally mandated at 325. They might have upped that to 365 and 650 pound-feet, or they might 750. Anyways, in the big medium-duty trucks, which would be 4500s, 5500s, F650s, 750s, things like that. And so I'm personally a little bit over the horsepower race, especially when we get into the world of safety and stuff. These trucks have more power than trucks like one of my trucks that I've been, 100,000 pounds with, has 350 horsepower in 1,200 pound-feet of torque. That's the big cam, it was the popular big cam Cummins horsepower setting and torque. And that engine, without a doubt, can pull 80,000 pounds and get better fuel mileage than this engine will be able to at, 35,000 gross. You can take that to the bank. I put my money on that. But anyways, It'll be cool, yeah, horsepower, but you know, let's shoot for. I would like to see fuel mileage. Um, we've hung around that pretty much 12 to 15 miles to the gallon empty for a while. It seems like kind of seems to be where things are at. Emissions intact. Um, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. I don't know. I'm just a hillbilly mechanic, but it'll be cool to see it. And I'm a little concerned about weight. I mean, these trucks are already heavy now. Um, I can't remember what a 6.7 weighs fully dressed. The 7.2 is going to be a little more, and then before you know it, you're going to have friggin' pickup trucks that are 15,000 pounds because they're going to a bigger ZF transmission than Xanfos. Is that what ZF stands for? Xanfos, I think. Um, yeah. So I'm interested to see. I bet it'll be a pulling son of a gun. I mean, you guys know it. And diesel pickups, Cummins is my favorite engine, but Ford is my favorite truck. I do like the 6.7 Power Stroke, but that's a conversation for another day. But just hard to beat the Cummins. It's hard to beat the industrial roots of the Cummins. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think. If one comes out, and for some reason I win the lottery, maybe I'll buy one and I'll beat on it like I did my gas motor. But anyways, thanks for watching.